Of course, here's an expanded 600-word segment for key points A1, Redefining Success, written in Muniba Mazari's heartfelt, reflective, and conversational tone. It flows naturally as part of her speech, setting the emotional foundation for the message, success starts inside you. We often grow up being told what success should look like. Since childhood, we are made to believe that success is equal to the top grades, the highest paid job, the largest house, or the greatest number of followers on social media. We are instructed that in order to be successful, we should always remain in a race with no end line. But have you ever taken a moment to question yourself? Who am I actually racing against? And what do you do when the applause ends? I used to think that success was something tangible, something you could physically hold onto, a trophy, a title, an accomplishment that would say to the world, I succeeded. But life has a great way of leveling us out, of reminding us that all the things we pursue on the outside sometimes mean very little if we're hollowed out on the inside. There was a moment when I possessed everything that, by standards set by society, I should have felt successful with: a career, accolades, and aspirations that were taking form. And then, in one moment, life shifted. My accident did not merely shatter my bones, it shattered the form of success I had carried for so long. I saw that all I had measured my value by, how I looked, what I could do, what I was planning to do, could vanish instantly. Lying in that hospital bed, helpless to move, I forced myself to ask a hurting question. If I am not the person I once was, then who am I today? And that's when I came to realize that success is not something you gain. It's something you uncover inside. It's not what you gain or what you lose. It's what you discover about yourself when all else is stripped away. Success begins when you come to terms with who you are. It begins when you give up comparing your path to others and understand that your narrative is supposed to be unique. You know, the world praises what it can witness, the awards, the roles, the claps. But actual success cannot be seen. It's in the bravery to rise after life pushes you down. It's in the ability to smile when your heart is breaking. It's in the act of choosing kindness over resentment, hope over despair, and faith in oneself over fear. When we measure success only by the opinions of others, we give power to someone else. But when success resides within us, from courage, vision, and appreciation, no one can ever take it away. The world might not always know your wins, but that doesn't make them any less real. Sometimes the greatest success is just enduring what was intended to kill you, and still deciding to love, to dream, and to live with abandon. So if you've ever caught yourself thinking that you're behind in life, remember you are not late, and you are not lost. Success isn't something you arrive at. It's a feeling you cultivate every day. It's waking up with a sense of purpose, knowing that you are enough, exactly as you are. You might not have all the answers, but you have something much stronger, the ability to grow, to change, and to rise. The fact is, success doesn't begin when the world believes in you. It begins the moment you believe in yourself. It begins when you look into the mirror and proclaim, I am proud of the individual I am becoming. Because regardless of what life takes from you, someone can't take away the light inside of you. That is where true success starts, right there in your heart. There's a point in every person's life when you know nobody is going to save you. You can have the world's love, support, and encouragement, but until you're willing to believe in yourself, nothing really shifts. That's when the change starts. The strength of self-belief is not arrogance. It's believing in yourself when no one else will. It's the quiet voice within you that says, you can, when all about you is shouting, you can't. I have searched for people to validate me for a long time. I wished for people to assure me that I was good enough, that I was competent, that I could do something with my life that mattered. But here's the truth. You give others the power to take it away when you let them decide your worth. It wasn't until life took away all those things I believed made me valuable, to my looks, my ability to move, my plans, that I found the strength I had within me the whole time. I recall the first time I caught a glimpse of myself after my accident. I didn't know the face in the mirror. My reflection was different, my body was broken, and for a time so was my spirit. But gradually, I came to understand that the woman standing there before me wasn't weak. She was surviving. She was still standing, and that meant something. That was when I learned the most important lesson of my life: self. Belief isn't built in moments of comfort. It's forged in the fire of adversity. Believing in yourself doesn't mean you'll never doubt. It means you'll keep moving forward despite the doubt. It's not about pretending that everything is perfect. It's about trusting that you can handle whatever isn't. Each and every one of us can rise, but we let ourselves be muzzled by fear. What if I fail? What if they laugh? What if I'm not good enough? But what if you are? What if your what if is your breakthrough? The world will never have an opinion. People will always tell you who you should be, how you should behave, what you can or cannot do. They only see your story from the outside. They don't know the battles you've fought in silence. They don't feel your struggles, your strength, your sleepless nights. Only you feel, only you see. So why let other people's noise overwhelm the truth that resides inside of you? Self-confidence is the seed from which all success seeds. When you begin to believe in yourself, the world begins to reflect it back to you. Opportunities begin to emerge, not because life becomes easier, but because your mindset has changed. You begin to see obstacles as opportunities, failure as a teacher, and every no as a detour, not a rejection. And sure, you will have moments when you stumble, when your faith quavers, when your fear rings out over your faith. But then you need to remind yourself that you've weathered every moment life has ever given you up to now. And that's proof enough that you have strength. You've survived all your toughest days already. You can certainly survive this next one too. When you trust yourself, you no longer wait for permission to live life to the fullest. You no longer require someone to tell you that you deserve your dreams. Because inside of you, you already know it. You just need to remember it. And the more you decide to trust yourself, the more unbreakable you become. So today, if you're questioning your potential, if you feel the world has given up on you, don't give up on yourself. Your faith is the spark that will ignite your way. The moment you say, I can, everything starts to change. Because the fact is, the only thing between who you are and who you want to be is the courage to know that you already possess what it takes. Pain is something we all have to deal with. It arrives in our lives unwanted, via loss, disappointment, heartbreak, or failure, and it shakes everything we believed about ourselves. For so long, I thought pain was something to flee from, something that made us weak. But I've come to find out that pain, when met with bravery, doesn't break you. It makes you. It is the crude stuff from which strength, empathy, and wisdom are forged. I tend to tell people sometimes life breaks you precisely enough to rebuild you into the person you were always supposed to be. When I experienced my accident, I believed that my story had come to an end. All that I had planned for myself was gone within a second. My dreams, my profession, even the mundane things that I had taken for granted. I kept wondering, why me? What did I do to deserve it? But as the weeks went by and the months followed, I noticed that perhaps life wasn't punishing me. It was preparing me. Pain has a way of removing the distractions. It reveals to you what is important and who is important enough to stand by you through it. It teaches you compassion, patience, and humility. It compels you to look within and discover the strength you never knew you had. I learned that true power doesn't reside in acting strong. It resides in being authentic about your weakness, your tears, your fight. Because it's in those uncut, exposed moments that miracles start. You realize we always believe that being powerful is all about being pain-free. But no, it's not. Power isn't the lack of pain. It's the power to overcome it. It's being strong when you want to break and telling yourself, I might have scars, but those scars have a story of survival. Every emotional or physical scar is a reminder that you have survived, that you have healed, that you are still alive. The lovely thing about pain is that it bonds us. It brings home the fact that we are all human beings. When you share your story, not your perfection, but your pain, you allow other people to heal as well. You remind them that falling apart is acceptable as long as you don't remain there. When you utilize your pain to lift someone else, that's the moment when it becomes power. Converting pain to power is not about suppressing your feelings or putting on a happy face. It is about being brave in the presence of the darkness, staying with your pain long enough to know it, and then using that knowledge to shine light for others. It's a journey, a slow, painful, at times solitary one, but it's where you discover your calling. At times, the very thing that pained you will end up being the factor that helps you discover your voice. I frequently tell people that I lost many things in that accident, but I also discovered myself. I discovered a purpose so much bigger than any plan I had prior to this. I discovered a reason to wake up each morning and motivate others who were broken to believe that they, too, could rise from their ashes. So if you're currently living through something hurtful, please keep in mind that your pain isn't a penalty. It's a transition. It's taking you somewhere, to growth, to knowledge, to strength that you can't yet appreciate. Don't allow it to make you bitter. Allow it to make you better. Don't allow it to muffle you. Allow it to mold your voice. Because one day that same agony that took you down to your knees will become the reason another person stands up. Pain doesn't have to define you. Your response to it does. And when you make the decision to take your pain and turn it into purpose, you don't heal yourself alone. You become a source of healing for others. That is true power, the kind that results not from what you've accomplished, but from what you've survived. We live in a society that reminds us at every turn to be perfect. Perfect faces, perfect lives, perfect professions, all draped in a gorgeous filter. The reality, though, is that perfection does not exist. It's an illusion, a goal that keeps receding further away the more we strive for it. The more we pursue perfection, the further away we move from who we are. I've discovered that beauty, success, and strength really come from loving our imperfections, from embracing our story just as it is. I wanted to be perfect for years. I wanted to be popular, fit in, meet everyone's standards. But life is very good at reminding us that it's not the perfect bits of us that make us human. It's the cracks. My accident reminded me so vividly. All of a sudden, I had scars on my body, restrictions that I had never experienced before, and I felt whole. I can remember staring in the mirror and thinking, who will ever find beauty in this? But over time, I realized that my scars didn't take away from me. They added to me. They were a testament to survival, to resilience, to a heart that just wouldn't quit beating even when the rest of me broke. And that's when I got it. Our flaws aren't our frailty. They are the evidence of our humanness. They are what make us human. The world may admire perfection, but individuals relate to genuineness. When you expose your imperfections, your battles, your vulnerability, you show others it's okay to be human too. You allow them permission to love themselves as well. Perfection might generate admiration, but authenticity generates strength of character, and that's way stronger. I tell individuals a lot that you don't need to be perfect to be able to affect change. You simply need to be real. The cracks in you aren't there to make you broken. They're there to allow the light in. When you cover up your imperfections, you also hide your strength. But when you accept them, You make them part of who you are, not something you're ashamed of, but something you're proud of. Consider this: all masterpieces are textured, dimensional, and flawed. That's what makes them special. Why should human beings be otherwise? My faults are what make me lovely in my own right. You don't have to eliminate them, you have to claim them. Because the moment you realize you love yourself, not in spite of your flaws, but because of them, is the moment you finally become free. I've encountered so many individuals who inhibit themselves because they believe that they are not ready, not good enough, or not perfect. But perfection is not the benchmark. It is the cop-out that prevents us from beginning. The reality is that nobody ever feels completely prepared. You learn, you grow, you fall, and you develop. That is what makes life worth living. The fault lines of your path are not indicators of failure, they are signs of progress. So the next time you gaze at yourself and notice flaws, keep this in mind: each scar, each wrinkle, each so-called flaw is a sign that you've lived, you've loved, you've endured. That's something to be proud of, not ashamed of. When you love yourself for who you are, you cease to battle with your reflection. You start to find peace, and from that peace comes confidence, joy, and an unshakable sense of self-worth. Love your flaws. Be kind to yourself. Celebrate those aspects of you that make you special, because that is where your magic is. You don't have to be perfect to be inspirational. You simply must be authentic. And when you learn at last to love yourself just as you are, you'll find the world really needs the version of you that has been there all along, flawed but strong beyond limits. There was a period in my life when I believed gratitude was reserved only for the times when things were going well, when life was being nice to me, when dreams were falling into place, when all things were in order. But life has taught me that genuine gratitude starts when things do not make sense. It is easy to be thankful when everything is just right. The real power is in being grateful even when they are not. After my accident, I had all reasons to be bitter. I was no longer able to walk, my body was full of scars, and my dreams as I know them were destroyed. For a time, all I could see was what I had lost. But one evening, resting in my hospital bed, I heard a child laugh somewhere down the hall. That sound, uncomplicated, pure, and full of life, struck me deeply. In that instant, I knew that I was still breathing, still living, still capable of feeling joy. And that's when I realized something deep. Life might not always provide you with what you desire, but it will always provide you with something for which you can be thankful. Gratitude does not equal ignoring your suffering or acting like everything is okay. It equals deciding to look at what remains, not what is gone. It's about changing your outlook, observing the blessings locked in the disorder. When you begin to count all the little things, you understand that they were never little after all. The feeling of sun on your skin, the laughter that echoes, the face of people who care, these are the gentle wonders that make life lovely even in the midst of darkness. I myself always say that gratitude is the bridge between what we already have and what we already want. When you thank the world for what you already have, you open your heart to receive more. But when you focus on what is lacking, you close yourself to the abundance that surrounds you. Gratitude changes the way you perceive the world. It converts obstacles into lessons, failures into redirections, and pain into purpose. When you practice thanks, you cease to wonder why me, and begin to thank you for the strength that this is creating in me. That subtle change, see, it changes everything. Gratitude does not make difficulties disappear, but it provides you with the guts to confront them with hope. It reminds you that even in adversity, there's purpose. Even in loss, there's gain. Even in conclusions, there are beginnings quietly waiting to be realized. I've known individuals who have so little in terms of material possessions but are so happy, and others who possess all the world has established as success. but remain unfulfilled. The distinction is one of gratitude, not what you have, but how much you love what you do have. A thankful heart takes mundane days and makes them celebrations, and everyday moments and makes them eternal joys. Sometimes gratitude is just getting out of bed and saying, "Thank you for another day," because not everyone had that opportunity. It's smiling at the guy sitting beside you, forgiving yourself for what you can't do, and living in the moment with peace. It's understanding that although life didn't go the way you wanted it to, it's still lovely in its own unique way. As you begin to live with thanks, you begin to see beauty where everybody else sees none. You see hope where everybody else sees despair. And most importantly, you see that happiness was never in living the perfect life. It was in possessing a thankful heart. So take a moment today and thank life, not only for the good days, but for the tough days as well. Because it's usually the toughest days that we learn the most valuable things. Gratitude doesn't merely alter what is outside of you, it changes you. It makes you softer, stronger, and more alive. And if you live in thankfulness, success no longer involves what you obtain. It's how much you love the journey itself. Resilience is a term we hear so much, but it's not something you really grasp until life puts you to the test, until everything you've ever taken for granted crumbles, and you're left with a decision, to quit or to get up again. I think resilience is the core of inner achievement. Not how many times you fall, but how many times you decide to stand up again, even if it hurts, even if nobody is looking. When I glance back at my life, I remember infinite opportunities where it would have been simpler to give up. Since my accident, there were times when I felt like a prisoner in my own body. Every step was agonizing, every morning a reminder of what I could no longer do. I would lie awake and wonder, what's the point? How do I live like this? But then something deep within me refused to surrender. There was a small voice that said, "You are still here for a reason." And this voice grew louder by the day. Resilience doesn't imply that you never crack up. It implies that when you do, you pick up the fractured pieces of yourself and rebuild, not into who you were, but into someone stronger, wiser, and bolder. Life will break you in ways you never imagined, but each time it does, you discover a new layer of your strength. You learn that you can bend without breaking, and that even when you're on your knees, you're still moving forward. We tend to believe that tough people are those who never cry, who never struggle, who always stay together. But strength is found in vulnerability. It is found in being able to say, "Yes, this is difficult. Yes, I am suffering. But I will not give up." The strongest people are not those who have never experienced pain. They are the ones who have been through the fire and remain strong enough to smile, to love, to hope. Resilience is a daily decision. It's deciding to look at what you can do rather than what you can't. It's not letting what happens to you define you. It's knowing that the path of healing isn't linear or smooth, but a winding road with detours and delays. And it's okay. Every step, no matter how infinitesimal, is progress. Sometimes resilience is silent. It's not loud or dramatic. It might be as easy as rolling out of bed one hard morning, or mustering up the strength to get out the next day. It's being kind when you have the right to be bitter, being forgiving when you could be angry, being faithful when it all seems lost. Those are the days that make you who you are. I've come to understand that resilience isn't something people are born with. It's something you develop, one struggle at a time, with each burden you bear. Each obstacle you overcome, you add another layer of armor, not to make you harder, but to ready you for what comes next. The cracks in your heart don't break you. They make you vulnerable. Vulnerable to growth, to compassion, to a greater understanding of life. And don't forget, resilience is not about going through life alone. It's all right to seek assistance, to rely on others, to weep when you must. Resilience doesn't mean you never fall. It means you never get back down. And whenever you rise, someone else will rise with you. So, when life knocks you down, and it will, don't view it as the end of your book. View it as a new page waiting to be filled. You might not be able to control what happens to you, but you can always control how you react. That's where your power is. Because ultimately, resilience isn't about how to survive, it's how to live again with an even deeper sense of how precious life itself is. It's the rhythm of success that begins within you, consistent, powerful, and unbreakable. For many of us, self-love is the toughest lesson to grasp. We're taught from a young age to care for others, to give, to nurture, but we're rarely taught how to love ourselves. In fact, society often tells us that putting ourselves first is selfish, that self-love is vanity, that sacrifice is the only form of goodness. But I've learned that self-love is not selfish, it is survival. It is the basis for all other love. Following my accident, when I was wheelchair bound and everything in my life had shifted, self-acceptance was something I wrestled with intensely. I stared at myself, and all I could see was what was lacking. I could see a body that couldn't move with ease anymore, a face that had scars, a woman who no longer complied with the world's perception of what is beautiful. I fought with my reflection for so long, but one day I realized, how can I expect the world to love and accept me if I cannot do the same for myself? That moment changed everything. I started to understand that my value had never been about the way I looked or what I could do. It was about who I was on the inside. And the woman that I saw in that mirror was still full of hope, still able to love, still strong beyond measure. I learned to smile at her again. That was the start of my journey towards self-love. Self-love does not equate to not loving others. Self-love equates to knowing that you can't give what you don't have. You can't pour from an empty cup. When you are compassionate with yourself, you can be kinder to others. When you are forgiving with yourself, you are able to forgive others. Self-love doesn't push people away. It makes them feel closer, because it is born of wholeness and not need. We tend to wait for someone else to tell us we're beautiful, worthy, strong. But self-love is when you don't wait for that. You say it to yourself. Every single day. Especially on the days when you don't feel worthy. Especially on the days when you don't feel seen. Because those are the days when self-love is your biggest act of bravery. Self-love is also about setting boundaries. Knowing the appropriate times to say yes and the appropriate times to say no. It's leaving people and situations that suck the peace from you, even if it's difficult. It's realizing that holding on to your energy isn't selfish, it's sacred. You owe yourself the same kindness you so readily extend to others. There's a misconception that self-love is about ego or self-accession. But it's not about thinking you're better than anyone else. It's about understanding that you're not less than anyone either. It's about honoring your journey, your pain, your progress. It's about looking at your scars, physical or emotional, and saying, these are proof that I've lived. When you start loving yourself, something amazing occurs. You no longer chase validation. You no longer accept anything less than what you're worthy of. You no longer apologize for existing. You begin standing taller, speaking softer, and living more bravely. You begin to see that your relationship with you determines the quality of all other relationships in your life. And don't forget, self-love isn't a destination, it's a practice. Some days it comes easily, other days it feels like an insurmountable task. But even on the difficult days, when you decide to be kind to yourself rather than critical, you are evolving. So love yourself, not the slick parts, but the messy, complicated, bumbling parts as well. Talk to yourself like you would to someone you love a lot, because you are worthy of that sort of love, always. And when you learn to really love yourself, you'll find that success isn't about the world loving you back. It's about you finally loving the person you've become. One of the greatest gifts you can bestow on yourself is the courage to be different. But it's also one of the most difficult things to do. From the time we are born, the world attempts to shape us into something that is familiar, to think alike, act alike, look alike, live alike. We are instructed to fit in, blend in. But the reality is, the individuals who leave the greatest positive impact on this world are the ones who have etched the courage within them to be different. For as long as I can remember, I wanted to be like everybody else. I wanted to walk like them, live like them, and do the same things everybody told me was right. But life had other ideas in mind for me. My accident altered not just my body, but my attitude. Suddenly, I was no longer like everybody else. I was different visually, emotionally, and physically. And initially, that difference was a burden to me. I felt like it isolated me from the world. But over time, I understood that my difference was not my weakness. It was my power. It takes strength to be different in a world that insists on telling you to conform. It's strong to say, I don't have to be like everybody else to be enough. Because the reality is, being different doesn't make you less. It makes you original. It means you're bringing something to this world that no one else is. Just consider how boring this world would be if everybody was the same. It's because of our differences in mind, in experience, in expression, that make the world beautiful. When you accept your uniqueness, you no longer try to make yourself small enough to fit into boxes that never existed. You no longer apologize for existing. You start to understand that being true is worth so much more than acceptance. There is strength in being tall in your truth, even when your voice trembles, even when others don't get it. I've learned that others can criticize something they don't comprehend, but that's not something that should drive you to hide. In fact, it should inspire you to shine even more. The more you try to fit, the more you lose yourself. But once you love and own who you are, entirely and unapologetically, you invite others to do the same. You become a living testament that being yourself is not something to be afraid of, but something to be embraced. Being different takes courage, because it usually involves going it alone. But it's in those times of solitude that you will find your purpose. The road to being authentic isn't well trod, but it is rich with meaning. And when you find harmony in your uniqueness, you'll see that you were never alone at all. You were simply blazing a trail for others who were afraid to go first. Occasionally, the world will not see your journey because it wasn't provided with your vision, and that is all right. You don't require everyone's permission to continue moving in your path. You only require your own faith that you're following the path intended for you. Allow your difference to be your light. Allow your story, with all of its twists and turns and differences, to be a reminder to others that beauty can be found in being real. The courage to be different doesn't mean rebelling against the world. It means being true to your essence, no matter what the world says. It's about choosing authenticity over acceptance, purpose over popularity, truth over comfort. Because in the end, success doesn't come from being like everyone else. It comes from being the best version of you. So be bold enough to stand out. Be bold enough to pave your own way. The world doesn't need another duplicate. It needs your unique light. And when you finally accept your difference, you'll see the very thing that previously made you feel alone is the same thing that makes you indelible. There's something intensely strong about a narrative, not the ideal kind, but the true kind, the type that is full of struggles, scars, tears, and triumphs. We all have a story we carry within us, and that story can heal, inspire, and transform lives. We often underestimate the power of our own story because we don't think it's remarkable enough. What we forget, though, is that it's not the magnitude of your story that inspires people. It's your authenticity. It's your bravery to stand up and say, This is what I've been through. And this is how I found my strength when I started telling my own story. The agony of my accident, the despairing moments, the journey of rebuilding my life. I didn't do it to be inspirational. I did it to be honest. I wanted others to understand that it's all right to fall apart, that it's all right to not be together. I hope that maybe, hopefully, my story would allow someone somewhere to feel a little bit less alone. And what I discovered was that the instant you lay out your truth, you open the door for others to do the same. Empowering others is not always about giving advice or knowing all the answers. Sometimes it's as simple as showing up being you. When you tell your story, not the filtered, edited one, but the true one, you remind others that surviving what they are living through is possible. You become a mirror of hope. I've met countless people who say, "My story isn't worth telling," or "Who would want to hear about my struggles?" But every story matters because every story carries a lesson. Maybe your story teaches resilience. Maybe it teaches compassion. Maybe it simply teaches someone that they can get through one more day, and that is enough. When we conceal our stories due to shame or fear, we take away others' opportunities to learn. But when we share with openness, we make our pain purpose. Our scars, the same things that we used to wish away, are evidence of our courage. They become bridges that unite us with others who are quietly battling their own wars. You never know who is observing you, silently gaining strength from your bravery. Sometimes just the act of speaking your truth can be the difference that keeps someone else from giving up. That's the ripple effect of genuineness. It goes far further than you can observe. And let me tell you something. Telling your story doesn't require that you have everything together. It doesn't require that you be at the end of what you're going through. It requires that you be gutsy enough to stand in the middle of your healing and still say, "This is me. This is real." That kind of vulnerability impacts people much more than perfection ever will. Your tale is your strength. It's your gift to the world, something that no one can imitate. You don't require a stage, a spotlight, or millions of people to be heard. You simply have to be willing to speak from the heart. Whatever it takes, 1 or 100, your authenticity has the power to spark change in ways you might never be aware of. So don't conceal your story. Don't tone down your light because you don't think it's shining bright enough. You never know whose darkness it could light up. Each time you own your truth, you allow others to own theirs too. And that's how empowerment starts. Not through perfection, but through the guts to be authentic. Because at the end of the day, success is not only about transforming your life, it's about reaching back and helping someone else find their way too. Your story has that power. Use it, because the world needs the light that only your truth can bring. At the end of the day, after all the struggles, the lessons, the triumphs and the tears, it all comes down to one simple truth. Everything you've been searching for has always been inside you. The strength, the bravery, the perseverance, the hope. It was never out there. It was always in here. We spend so much of our existence running after light in others, in success, in things, thinking that eventually, if we can just get to a point, if we can just make it, then finally we will be full. But success begins not when you find the light. It begins when you acknowledge that you are the light. There was a moment when I thought that my situation defined me, that my wheelchair, my scars, my limitations somehow lessened me. But with time, I knew that no situation, no loss, no hardship can ever extinguish the light that resides within. That light, your purpose, your soul, your belief in yourself, that is one thing the world cannot ever dull unless you allow it to. The light in you isn't something you acquire, it's something you find. It's the silent strength that encourages, try again. It's the calm that says, you've done enough. It's the love that reminds you that even on your worst days, you still have something to offer. We all have that light, although sometimes life buries it under piles of fear, pain, and doubt. But even when it flickers, even when it is in danger of fading, it never really goes out. The secret is to guard that light, to feed it, to nourish it, and to let it shine. The world is unforgiving. People will judge you, situations will discourage you, and life will challenge you in ways that you never thought possible. But no matter what goes on around you, don't ever let it make your heart hard. Never let it steal your compassion. The light within you is what makes you human. It's what connects you to others. It's what allows you to turn pain into power and dreams into reality. When you live from that inner light, you stop chasing validation. You stop waiting for the world to tell you that you've succeeded. You begin to understand that success isn't a destination, it's a state of being. It's waking up every day with gratitude, with purpose, with peace in your heart. It's choosing kindness in a world that often forgets it. It's forgiving when it's easier to hold a grudge, loving when it's easier to hate, and believing when it's easier to give up. That is success. That is the triumph of the soul. The most gorgeous aspect of the light in you is that it doesn't only illuminate your way, it illuminates others' paths as well. When you are being real, when you love your story, when you decide to hope and not be afraid, your light is a shining example for another person who is lost in the darkness. You might never know whose life you've touched, whose spirit you've lifted, whose hope you've restored, but that's the quiet power of shining from within. So, as you navigate life, keep this in mind: success doesn't begin with opportunity or acknowledgement or applause. It begins with you, with your heart, your spirit, your light. You are enough, even when the world tries to convince you otherwise. You are powerful, even when you feel powerless. You are whole, even when you've been shattered, because the light within you is greater than any darkness without. And when you finally realize that, when you cease looking for light and begin to be the light, you'll see that success was never out there waiting for you. It was here all along, shining softly within your very soul, waiting for you to have faith in it. Let your light shine, not for the world to see you, but for the world to see what is possible when someone has the courage to believe that success begins within.